Okay, welcome guys. I'm sorry that I can't be here with you today, but we're going to do a quick review of your um, picture unit, and then we're going to talk about where we go next. When I see you again on block day, that's when we're going to do our evaluation of your pictures. So make sure that you've placed your pictures in your drive folder, that you've labeled each one of them as your first initial, last name, the type of picture it is, and we will go from there on block day. In the meantime, you get to listen to me and get a practice with some equipment, hopefully, if we get time. So things to remember with your picture taking, make sure they're in your drive folder. Be ready to talk to me and present tomorrow or Thursday, depending on which day is your block day. Final thoughts. Keep in mind that the only acceptable duck face is if you happen to be Eddie from Queen. Other than that, no. So here's things to keep in mind. When you take pictures, it's important that you back them up. And there's lots of different ways to do that. Remember that, of course, we can use that cord that we have to USB to connect to our device. But anymore, if you've got a smartphone, using the iCloud is probably the most wise thing to do. Making sure that you're connected via Dropbox or Drive or to Photos is a very important thing for you to consider when you're backing up your photos and moving things. Here's what you need to know about non-phone moving. Keep in mind that if you're using just a camera with an SD card, that you should use an SD card reader and that you can actually make a connection and to do that. Important following that moment. You have lots of tools, whatever you're actually moving that. I really like card readers, like at the bottom. Those devices are really awesome. You just pop the card, put them in a card reader, plug them into your USB, and away you go. This is something that I see a lot of people not do, and it's really, really important. If you are using a camera with an SD card, when you're finished using it, you've secured your pictures, you've moved them and backed them up, you need to reformat your camera. And it's basically a procedure that allows you to toggle through your menu until you find Format. It'll then walk you through reformatting, which means that you're going to erase all the data from those pictures from that card. You should make this a habit. And when we actually work with camcorders, it's important that you reformat them before you put them away, because it's not fair to the next person who's going to use the camera if there's 2 or 3 hours worth of content that they have to try to wade through before they go to use it. How do they know what you want to keep or not? So after you finish with any device that you use here at VisionTech, you should reformat that card or that memory storage. So we're going to talk about camcorders, and hopefully I've got some camcorders out for you to see. There's varied basic kinds. There's one that we have that's called a mini DV, and if you look up in the corner there, that little tiny tape, that's a mini DV camera. We only have one of those, and we keep only one in case someone comes in and needs to be able to transfer film that they have to be recorded, and we keep it just as a backup for that purpose, but we don't use it otherwise. Why? Because it shoots in a standard format. We prefer you to be able to shoot in HD, which is high definition. High definition creates more pixels per for the resolution, and it's just a better picture. So it's kind of like watching VHS versus watching Blu-ray. So yeah, we want to go with an HD camera. A hard disk is a camcorder that does not use videotape. However, it's not necessarily high definition. Whereas high definition, which allows us to record at 24 frames per second or higher. We actually have some frames that will go up to 36 frames per second. And that's really important because it changes the quality of the film. And if you're shooting action sequence, it really, really changes how that film looks. There's also what's called a professional disc camera. And guys, I am not a big fan of these, but I say that because you might have one of those at home. And basically, it would use a little tiny, look like a little tiny DVD, which I've actually had people try to stick inside to a DVD drive. Oh, disaster. But yeah, you could actually record onto those and then reformat them and play them in a DVD player. But I'm going to tell you, they just make things a little tougher when you have those. But those kind of cameras actually do exist. Flash memory. Flash memory is basically like a, well, it's actually storage like on a stick. And if, as you can see, this is a Sony stick. We also use SD cards for some of our storage. It depends on the type of camcorder. So Sony is kind of particular. They only use what's called a Sony stick. And other cameras will use their own. Olympus will use their own. Most camcorders will use a standard SD card. So you got to look at the type of camera to determine what kind of storage it is. And we have readers for all of these. Speaking of that, let's talk about moving video files. So there's different types of devices to move. There's what's called a 4-pin and a 4-pin to FireWire. And FireWire has that kind of square end with the round end up on top. And they're really outdated, but you might have a camcorder at home that still uses FireWire. The most standard connection is called a USB. And we also have cameras that move from a 4-pin to what's called to a USB. And it looks like that. And USBs come in different levels of speed. They come in 100, 200, and 300. So we really, the speed at which we can move media today is vastly improved than what it used to be. We have what's called a FireWire 600, a FireWire 800. We have HDMI cords, which a lot of you gamers will be familiar with. We have what's called the Thunderbolt. So this first one, that's actually USB. Here's what a FireWire will look like. Here's what a FireWire 800 will look like. Notice it's square, while a FireWire 600 has kind of a rounded end on one side. HDMI looks like this. And Thunderbolt has that smaller connection. You'll see Macs using a lot of Thunderbolts. So let's talk about actually using that camcorder. Here's what's important. We're going to practice, not necessarily today, but probably during block after we finish presentations. I want you to think about using a camcorder. And of course we have all kinds of devices to assist us, but you need to learn about shots. So just as we studied shots and angles with photography, there are different shots that bring different meaning when you are using a camcorder. So watch and listen. So as you can see, our model is the young lady that's all dressed in black, and she's in the rule of thirds shot. This is called a wide shot, and a wide shot will give you a look at the entire action around us. This is called a full shot. And again, we're going to put our young lady in the rule of thirds position, but notice it's tighter, more controlled. We can't see everything that's going on. And this is called a mid shot. Again, notice that we're bringing things tighter, even though we still have composition around the outside. This will tell us less. This puts the focus on the subject matter more. We're going to bring it in even more. This is called a medium close-up. Great for conversation or when you want to pinpoint something. Close-up number 1, a direct full-on frontal, keeping the right dominant eye in prominence. Here's another close-up. Notice that it's kind of off to the side, off a side portrait, but that's another way to do a close-up. This is an extreme close-up. You might do this if you wanted to show your characters' emotions, or if they're anxious, or something like that. This is called Dutch angle, mostly because it's kind of kilter, off kilter, meant to be. It's meant to be that way. This is low angle, meaning we're actually shooting from below upwards. A lot of times this will make your character look uneasy or unsure of themselves. Just as this shot also is shot from below, this is another low angle number 2 shot. Notice that we're changing positions again. This shot is going to be done from above. It's high angle. Notice this is a pan shot. We started from the right and we moved to our subject. You can pan right, you can pan left, you can pan top to bottom, you can pan bottom up. Here's a cut-in shot with just a focus on a certain body part, like hands or feet. This is over the head, shot from behind. Notice that this gives us, it's almost like we're looking at the same things our character is. And this is a tilt, a pan up. This is a dolly zoom. Basically, it's going to be when you actually move your camera. This is going to be like over the shoulder shot. Great for dialogue when you are trying to show interaction between two people. Medium 2 shot, again, great for conversation. Remember, we're going to try to, if you're trying to show what a scene between people, you change the way we see the characters. Over the shoulder number 2, again, notice the focus is on the second speaker. So lots of great shots and angles, which we are going to practice on block day. And that's the end of recording for part 1. There will be part 2 soon.